Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. I am so excited to do this video today. I was just kind of like walking around the house, and I was lighting candles, and lighting my, what do you call them, candle waxes, so the whole house smells good when my husband comes home, and the dogs are running around. And I was like, what to make a video about today? And what's really funny is I started listening last night to the Audible version of Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. So it's a full cast audio recording. It's fantastic. It's like listening to old school radio, like when they would do like the Alfred Hitchcock, hour and all that kind of stuff, like suspense. And I love it. It's so fun to listen to it. But when I was listening to it, I was kind of thinking like, what have been like my favorite like Audible listens to this year? And so then when I was home, I was like thinking, I was like looking at my bookshelf and I was like, well, which ones have been my favorite books to read this year? Which books have had the most profound effect on me? Like there are a lot of books that I read that were really, really good, and the year's not over yet, but there have been a lot of books that I've read that were really, really good, but like they don't have a huge impact on me. Does that make sense? And like I always forget who the author is, and it was interesting because I went through and I picked out like which books are my must reads so far for 2017, and one of the books that I was thinking about was The Silent Child by Sarah Denzel. But like whenever I think about talking about that book, like whenever somebody asks me about it, I always have to Google her name. Like I never remember the author's name. And I think that's very telling about a book a lot of times, It's like if a book is really that good, I typically remember everything about it. So for example, I was at Einstein Bagels today. Oh my God, I got a cinnamon and sugar spiced bagel with, what did I get on it? Honey, some kind of honey stuff. It was so good. But while I was there, I just happened to be perusing the Weekly View, which I don't know, it's like the local newspaper or something. And I'm like, oh my God, I know her. And it's like right here, okay? Oh, no, that's Tom Petty, sorry. Up here, do you see? We don't care about the rest of these people. I do not know who these other people are that won national awards, but right there is Francesca Zappia. So when you live in Indianapolis with some of your favorite authors, Francesca Zappia and Kurt Vonnegut and John Green are all from Indianapolis. Indianapolis is starting, and of course I live here, and I have 2 new books coming out, and so Indianapolis is becoming this thriving artist, author community. It is, it just really is. There are so many fantastic authors from Indianapolis, and Dan Wakefield is from Indiana, and who's the other person that my mom, James Wickham Riley, she used to always read him. I've actually never, are you ready for this? I'm so embarrassed. I have never read a Kurt Vonnegut book, and my mom loved him. So anyway, that's not what this is about. This is about the fact, if anybody wants this or wants a copy, if you guys are, any of you out there are such a Francesca Zappia fan, I will go get copies of this and send it to you if you're like really that. Don't 20 people send me, I don't listen, okay? I ain't her PR agent. She's got her own PR agent. But I was still dying to meet her sometime. So yes, Francesca, I'm basically your biggest stalker. I have a good friend of mine that works at the University of Indianapolis where she is a professor, and I think she's a professor there. And I said to him the other day, I go, do you know Professor Zappia? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, can you like go knock on her door and tell her that you know her biggest fan? So anyway, I could just tweet to her, right? That would probably be easiest. So I wrote down my top, I went through them and I just picked out those books that I felt like if you do not read, you are missing out, okay? Like the experience for me was so profound that they're books that I find myself repeating in videos, that I talk to people about in bookstores, that I tell people they have to read all the time, right? And so, I don't know, some of them might surprise you, some of them probably won't. Some of them I kind of forgot that I read in 2017. So anyway, I'm shuffling through them and I'm just gonna randomly pick one out at a time, right? Okay, so the first one that we're gonna talk about is All the Crooked Saints by Maggie Stiefvater. This is probably my most recent one on the list. I just read it a couple weeks ago. And what happened was really interesting. What had happened was that if you watch my video where I was so excited to buy Turtles All the Way Down by John Green on Audible, Maggie Stiefvater's book was for sale coming out that same day. And I was like, well, I might as well get it. I've never read a Maggie Stiefvater book. And I got it. And to read a book, like, so for me, that was her debut novel to me because I haven't read anything by her before. I was just blown away. I mean, blown away. I was even telling my husband about it. I was like, we have got to buy your mom and your grandma this book, and I hope it translates into Spanish because it's so beautifully written, it should anyway. but I think that his abuela would love to read it, like, and I just, it's magical realism, I think, like, at its best. I don't know, it very much reminds me of, like, Alice Hoffman, and if you don't know anything about it, it's about this town in Colorado called Bichoraro, and there are saints that live there, and then people that come as pilgrims because they want to get miracles, but these saints only do one half of the miracle. So it's very comical, but it's also, I mean, so beautiful and so endearing. And really the message at the bottom of it is that, you know, like, you have to be the one to accomplish your dreams. And I love that there's so many messages in it, but there's no real main character either. It's just this, you know, like, ensemble cast of crazy characters that are all beautiful in their own right. And the book is just, I'm so blown away that more people are not talking about it. I just really, I don't know if people are comparing it to, like, the Raven Boys or a previous work, but I'm telling you right now, it is such a standalone and it's fantastic. Okay, so the next book is There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. Okay, now this is interesting that this made it on this list, and this was actually the last book that I read in September. So Stephanie Perkins put out this horror novel. Now, if you watch my vlogs, if you guys do watch my vlog channel, so I vlog every night and every day, but most of it's in my car just talking, and a lot of what I talk about is writing and books and things like that. At the time that I was reading that book, I was really struggling with it. I almost DNF'd that during the first half, which is kind of like where I have found that, like, I need to allow myself to get to the first half of a book because I almost just DNF'd Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill, and it turned out being fantastic. I mean, not one of my favorite books, but still, I mean, it was good in its own right. But anyway, There's a Stranger in Your House, or There's Someone in Your House, I, like, really could not get into. I thought it was so cheesy, and then I went and read some interviews by Stephanie Perkins about the book, and that was kind of her intention. Now, let me just tell you what's interesting is that it is the book that I wish I had read for Halloween. Like, I couldn't get it out of my system. Like, I have not been able to stop thinking about this book. Like, when I'm, like, driving just around town, I'm constantly thinking about this book. Like, when I pass a house, I'm like, oh, that reminds me of that book. And for a book to do that, no matter how cheesy it is or how trivial or what the topic is, I think has kind of served its purpose. And I think next year when people are like, what's a great book to read for Halloween, this will be at the top of my list. It just was really well done. And if you're wanting a book that's scary, I think for young adult horror lovers, well, for people that love to read horror novels, this is a really good young adult version of it. And it does very much play out like the Lois Duncan of the old days, like I Know What You Did Last Summer, and, you know, all those books, and the Scream franchise of movies. It feels very much like that, and it almost too much at times, but, like, I remember the characters. I remember what happened, you know, and I am waiting for, you know, a sequel, because I think there will be, and all that kind of stuff. It just was, I don't know. It's funny that a book on that level really stuck with my mind, so I really liked it. Okay, the next book is Ramona Blue by Julie Murphy, and, you know, I wish, if I could pick a sister, a literary sister, I would pick Julie Murphy. I just think she and I think very much alike, and there's not a character that she doesn't write about that I don't immediately fall in love with, that isn't endearing but a little awkward, that isn't, I don't know, that speaks my truth on so many levels. And Willow Dean, Dumplin, from Dumplin, her first novel, well, that was her second novel. And Side Effects May Vary is also by Julie Murphy. I loved it, but I didn't love it to the same level that I love the other two books. And then Ramona Blue is just a character that stays with you forever. You know, the other day it was interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine about her daughter going to college, and I started to talk about Ramona Blue like she was a real person. I was like, well, you know, like, maybe down the road they'll decide what they... I was like, I don't want to give away, but if you haven't read the book, but I was, like, talking about Ramona Blue like she was a real person. Now, that's when a book has really done its job, right? So if you have not read Ramona Blue, go check it out. And Dumplin is coming out, I think, next year as a movie. Okay, the next book, I am not even going to talk about this at length, because this book is so fine, so fantastic, and that is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. You know, okay, so I saw a tweet that Jenna put out, and Jenna Cleric, she put out something about I think I had been mispronouncing her name all these times. I read it as Jenna Claire K, and I think it's Jenna Cleric. So can somebody tell me, Jenna, if you watch my videos, which I'm sure she doesn't, can you tell me? She's one of my favorite booktubers of life. But anyway, so I noticed a tweet that she put out, something about like the hate you give, like why are you doing this to me or something. And it had been kind of like I had seen it like in bookstores and I'd seen it on Audible and I was like, oh, I want to read this and the cover's cute. This is kind of how I thought about it. And then I was like, I will say this about the cover, okay? The cover does not match the main character for me for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I know the description does, but I've never looked at the cover and just immediately thought of her. So anyway, the book blew me away. I wasn't expecting it to be what it was. I wasn't expecting it to be so fundamentally profound of our times right now. And I also didn't expect it to be in depth the way that it was. And I mean, it takes, and I thought what was so powerful about it was that it took something that is so needing to be talked about at this moment, and it did it from several different angles, but mostly this innocent young lady, and takes her through this cathartic change, and on the other side, she becomes another person. And, you know, it's very much a story of turning your wounds into wisdom and becoming empowered. And I just was, I don't know, I rooted for her the whole time. And I rooted for the family and I rooted for all of it. And there just was so much to me in there. And I think, you know, on my other channel, when I talk about having white privilege and being exposed to white privilege, a lot of people don't like that. And a lot of people go, there's no such thing. Well, I have experienced it and I very much believe it. And to address it the way that it was addressed in the book, okay, I think was so well done and so appropriate and so true. And the boyfriend, honest to God, is one of my favorite characters because it's very much I'm getting kind of nervous talking about this because I've never really talked about it on this level, but this is like if I was sitting down having a conversation with my friend, this is what I would say. The boyfriend very much wants to understand and be supportive, but never will. And I think that as a person that has white privilege and is white privilege in our country, that's the truth, okay? That no matter on what level we want to empathize, sympathize, or try to understand and help, we will never understand it, okay? And so our role is really to sit back and to be educated and have somebody tell us what it's about. And that book did it in such a fine way that I want to thank Angie Thomas for allowing me the experience. It's almost making me tearful. For allowing me the experience of somebody else's point of view that I never would have had. So it's such a phenomenal book. It was such a learning experience. If you haven't read it and you are gonna do like Diversathon or something, read it. I think it should be the book that everybody reads next. I mean, it is just that good. I just bought it for like 3 people. I literally buy this book and hand it out to people. I think it's so important to read. So anyway, okay, let's go on to the next one. I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it. Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. Okay, so, I struggled with this book. Did I struggle with this book? So, I actually, in the mail, somebody sent me Made You Up with all these, was it you? Was it you, Francesca? But it was like very much a PR package, and I was like, who sent this to me? And it was from Indianapolis, so I don't know, but, I had never heard of Eliza and Her Monsters until Dylan at Dylan the Reader 5 started talking about it and how it was his favorite book and he read it in 3 hours and all this kind of stuff. So I went to the bookstore and I was like, I have to have it. I have to have it for Booktubeathon. This is going to be the book that I'm going to read for Booktubeathon. And I went and I bought it. I actually had to go to 2 bookstores. I went to Barnes & Noble, they were out of it. I went to Half Price Books, and the second Half Price Books that I went to finally had it. And I bought it, and the cover was gorgeous, and I couldn't wait to I couldn't wait to read it. Y'all know, I talked about it on here a ton. And so finally, I read it, I started it for that, but like I could not get past 100 pages, you guys. I really struggled with it. And then I finished it. I read 101 pages to the end of it, literally in like 2 settings. It was so fantastic. It was so well done. It was so endearing. Eliza is, a character that I will never forget. I will never forget her. Like, I feel like she lives down the street from me. And, I think that is... I am somebody that could care less about plot and could care more, and I care more about characters. I want to fall in love with characters. I want to really understand what's going on inside their minds and what makes them tick. And I thought that was fantastic. I will tell you something that I thought was really, really interesting when I was reading this article today, because I did not know this about her. So I was reading down here and it says, it says, honored with a $5,000 Emerging Author Award. I mean, she should have won every award on here. I don't even know who these other people are or their books. I'm sure she's very humble, and she says, oh no, don't worry about it. But it says, was Francesca Zappia of Indianapolis, author of Made You Up and the online serial, The Children of Hypnos. And I thought, hold on a second, because I didn't go read it on the second page. But I thought, are they not even, okay, wait, in addition, no, they didn't even mention Eliza and Her Monsters, which is on the Goodreads Choice Awards this year, and everybody's heard of it. They didn't even mention it. Junk. So anyway, weekly view. Okay, oh, I dropped 3 cards. So I don't want this to go over a certain amount of time, because then I'll have to do all kinds of editing. More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. I loved it. I have not read his 3rd book yet. Death Becomes Her, or whatever it's called. It's his 3rd book. They all look the same on the cover. I can't wait to read it. I have it right over there. Okay. The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. I actually forgot that I had read this year. I thought this was last year. So it's going to be really hard to pick a contender for the best book of the year, because it's going to be Eliza and Her Monsters, The Hate U Give, or The Underground Railroad. And The Underground Railroad, if you don't know, I think it won the Pulitzer this year. Is it the Pulitzer that it won? Colson Whitehead won the Pulitzer, but it's either going to be this or probably The Hate U Give. I'm telling you right now, The Hate U Give is the best book. You have to read it. You have to read it. And then the final book, but The Underground Railroad, fantastic. It took me a little while to get into, too. The last book, I talked so much about this, I become a diehard fan of hers, Leanne Moriarty, and that is Big Little Lies. I read it in 3 days on the beach in Cancun, loved it, huge fan of hers. The movie was okay. The book, fantastic. I mean, she is, her books. She is vacation books. So if you're going on vacation, if you're going somewhere for Christmas, go buy her books. Truly Madly Guilty, I'm reading right now, and you'll have the time of your life. Make a video. Tell me what the top reads that you're doing for this year are, what you love to read this year, so that I know what to read next. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.